Welcome. I'm Amy Button-Rins, President and CEO of the K-State Alumni Association. I want to welcome you to our Wildcat Chat, Hale Library Returns. And we're thrilled that Dean Lori Goetsch is going to be able to update you about what has been happening at Hale Library. And I have to share that prior to the pandemic, she was our most popular speaker on the Alumni Club and Catbacker Tour. Everyone wanted to know what was happening with the library. But before I turn it over to Dean Goetsch, I'd like to share a little bit about her. She was named Dean of the KSU Libraries in August of 2004. So she's been at Kansas State University for 17 years. She serves as a chief administrator of the university libraries, but that also includes Hale, the Math and Physics Library, and the Library of Architecture, Planning, and Design. I don't think people realize that we have more than one library location. She received her MLS from the Dominican University, which was formerly Rosary College, and a BS and an MS in English from Illinois State University. We were also very pleased that we had space to provide to Dean Goetsch and many of her main administrators right after the fire. So they were actually housed at the Alumni Center, and it was wonderful to be able to get to know them better and to help them whatever way we could. But with that, I would like to welcome Dean Goetsch to Wildcat Chat.
Great, thanks, Amy. Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here today. Before we get started working through the questions that have been asked for this chat, we're going to show you just a brief video that was done by Hutton Construction, the general contractor, on the project to renovate Hale Library. It'll give you just a taste of what the library looks like now, and then we'll talk a little bit about what happened, how we got to where we got, and about the renovation and collections and other questions that you have asked. So let's roll the video. So that gives you just a taste of what we're looking like today. Let me start working my way through some of the questions that were asked, and feel free to put additional questions or comments in the chat as we go along. Of course, the first question that was on the list that I got was, what caused the fire in the library and when did it occur? We're coming up to our 3rd anniversary. The fire was on May 22nd, 2018. It started on the roof of the library in the late afternoon and was ignited by a welding spark. We had roofers working on the building during that time, and the fire ignited and went undetected for a period of time. The fire itself didn't do a whole lot of damage. Of course, it did damage to the roof, and the only place where it came into the actual building itself was in the corner of the great room. But we had hundreds of thousands of gallons of water poured into this building, as well as a significant amount of smoke. And between the water and the smoke, it created a soot that just covered everything. So as a result of that, we lost about 85% of the 550,000 square foot Hale Library to smoke and water damage. Drywall was taken out, ceilings were removed. We lost most of our furniture. It was quite a disaster. I was in Fort Worth, Texas at the time, so I wasn't even on campus when it happened, and spent the evening on the phone until I could return home the next morning. The building has been open now for several months. We've opened the first floor originally, which is the Dave and Ellie Everett Learning Commons. And then we opened floors 2 through 4. The 5th floor remains closed. Someone inquired about when that might open. We hope to open it in August, in time for school to start. 5th floor includes our special collections and university archives area. We've just started to move materials back into that area. It includes the Hemisphere room, which is a very popular meeting room, our technical services areas, and administrative offices. So I am back in my beautiful administrative office right now, which is really makes me a happy camper. But I do want to thank the Alumni Association for housing us for 2.5 years. It was really a great place to be and a great place for the administrative team to work. So thanks to Amy and her colleagues for that. Someone asked about collections, how many books we were able to save and how many were damaged beyond repair. We were very, very lucky. We were able to save most of the collection, probably somewhere around 10,000 or so that were not salvageable. And that's out of about 1.5 million print items in the collection. So we were very, very fortunate. What we weren't so fortunate about is that each of those books that remained on the shelves was damaged by a soot that formed on them as a result of the water and the smoke. So every volume needed to be cleaned one at a time. We worked with our restoration company, Belfour. They set up a cleaning environment at our facility out by the Manhattan airport. And they proceeded to clean by hand every volume that was taken out of the library. They wiped it with a chemical sponge, and then items were grouped together and put in an ozone chamber to take the smell out, take the smoke smell out. So while we didn't lose a lot of materials, we had to invest a lot in the cleaning of the materials that we were able to salvage. Someone asked me what change I'm most excited about with the renovation, the thing that will be best for students and that we fought hard to make happen. And I think other than the whole building in itself is a very exciting thing. One of the things I'm looking forward to most, which will open in the fall, is the Sunderland Foundation Innovation Lab. This is a new service for us. It's a lab that will help expose students to new technologies, cutting edge technologies like virtual reality, artificial intelligence, makerspace, but we'll have media production capability. So a student who wants to come in and practice for a job interview or videotape a presentation for a class will have the resources here in the library to do that. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about is the innovation lab. We've got a lot of other new and exciting spaces in the library as well. The first floor is the Dave and Ellie Everett Learning Commons. We're very happy to have that donation to be able to remodel the first floor to include collaboration rooms, seminar rooms, Joyce and Joe's Cornerstone Cafe, thanks to the Hale family. The cafe is a partnership with Housing and Dining Services on campus, so we're also very happy to be working with them. First floor also houses the Virginia Carlson Reading Room, which is our children's literature and curriculum materials collections. That is on the lowest floor of the 1927 original Farrell Library. We opened the first and second floors of Farrell Library to the public. They had been, the first floor was collections and the second floor was staff. And one of the feedback items we got from students when we were doing focus groups about the renovation was that they like to study by natural light. And those two rooms happen to be the ones that have a lot of natural light, but we weren't using them for public space in that way. So we're very happy to open up those rooms as well. So a lot has changed, a lot of new spaces in Hale for students to access and utilize. We had a question about if all the books are brought back to the library or in place now or not. That is still a work in progress. We hope to have that completed maybe by the end of the summer or in early fall. We do have a substantial portion of the collection moved back in, including our art and music collection, which is a designated collection on the third floor of the library. And our juvenile literature collection is back in along with curriculum materials. And then several floors of the 1955 Stacks building are already filled up. So you can come in, and if an item is here that you want to come in and check out, they are available to be circulated. A lot of people ask about the murals. The Great Room murals are so much loved by the K-State community. And they suffered during the fire and the water, mostly the result of the water. Since they're painted directly on the walls absorbed water, and so the murals absorbed water. We needed to wait months for them to dry out before they could be restored. We worked with a company called Canning that did our conservation work on the murals. So once the murals were dried, they came back and worked on touching up paint and finishing the murals and restoring them to their original beauty. They look fantastic. And we have done some things in the room to improve access to electricity and power, which students had also requested. And the Great Room is becoming, again, a very popular study space for students. Next group of questions kind of focus on student usage and the transformation to the digital age. You know, one of the things that we have talked about here is the value proposition. When you have so much going online and so much available electronically now, we wondered, will people come back to the library when we open it back up? And they certainly are coming back. The pandemic has made it slow, but students are returning and faculty are returning to the building. So we're very happy to see that we conquered that value proposition. One of the questions is, with so much available online, how has the library changed to meet student needs and support their requirements? The library is really a hybrid place now. It's a physical environment as well as an electronic environment. We provide hundreds of and thousands of electronic resources to students. Most of those are subscription-based materials that we license and subscribe to similarly to how we would do a journal or a book, except that we're under a particular licensing contract for who can access those materials. But the library as place is still very important. It's very important to the students. They think of the library, I've heard it described as the third home, a place where it's not their classroom and it's not their apartment or their dormitory or their sorority or fraternity house. It's a place where they can come, where they know that they can find an environment that suits them to study in, that there's expert help here that can assist them. We get a lot of students who tell us that just coming into the library and finding that favorite study spot makes them feel smarter and makes them work harder on their coursework. So we're always happy to hear that kind of feedback from our users. We also offer more computers than we have in the past. We've got our second floor Info Commons area has 99 public computers. So we recognize the need for those on campus, even though students still have their own devices and more are bringing their own devices with them. They like to use the library's computers along with their own device. I was down on the second floor today and I noticed a student who had the library computer in front of him, and then he had his laptop off to the side and his phone off to the other side. So they are very technically oriented and interested and able to use multiple devices all at one time. It's pretty interesting to watch how their work has changed. Another related question is, how is Hale transitioning to the digital age? And I can talk about this in terms of a little more in terms of collections. You know, in 2016, the number of electronic items that we owned or made available surpassed the number of physical items in our collection. Last year in FY20, we had 34 million total volumes, and 3.4 million, not 34 million, 3.4 million, that sounds a little better. Total volumes, and about 1.87 of those were digital and 1.57 of those were physical. So we have clearly gone into the digital age with our collections. We have 1.6 million electronic books, 247 databases, 91,000 electronic serials, and alternatively 600,000 physical volumes stored in our annex, which is a facility out by the Manhattan airport. So we've clearly gone over into the digital environment with our collections. Also with our services, we provide online chat service and other ways to access expertise in the library through a collection of guides called LibGuides, and the website, which is just currently being redesigned and will be coming up live here relatively soon. The next question is, what are the 3 changes which will make learning easier for KSU students? I think some of the things that we've done here in the facility fall into that category. We've added a number of collaboration rooms, all of them with whiteboards and ability to hook a computer up to a big screen. So I think that has helped students a lot in their creating a learning environment, and particularly for group learning. A lot of students prefer to study in groups or need to work with a team on a class project. So those collaboration rooms are critical to that. But it's only one of the type of study spaces that we've offered in the library. We have tried to provide a variety of different climates, microclimates, study environments for students so they can find the one that suits them the best. Group study isn't for everybody. A lot of students need to have that absolute quiet. So we plan the building so it gets quieter as you go up. I think another thing that changes that we've made that make learning easier is that we have a very robust library instruction program where librarians go out and talk to classes and instruct them in information literacy, how to find information, how to evaluate it, how to use it for your course assignments, papers, and that sort of thing, that there's more to search than Google. I think the last of the three changes that we made that makes learning easier is that we have thousands of resources online. If a student can't get to the library, they can access much of the library's resources electronically from off campus. Is overall use of the library and its services increasing or decreasing these days? You hear so much these days about the lack of need for libraries, but I think they are needed more than ever, thanks to that person. I think they're needed more than ever too. It's been a difficult few years to assess the use of our library. Prior to the fire, we would see a pretty substantial number of people coming into the library on a daily basis. After the fire, we just opened the first floor for a while, for a period of time. So we only have the data for that floor. But in April 2018, the month before the fire, our daily counts of people coming into the building ranged around 3,000 to 3,500, and then bounced up into the 4,000s during finals week and dead week. So we're clearly seeing a slow growth of people coming back to the library now, but our numbers are nowhere near what they were 3 years ago. I'm confident that they will come back. We're excited for fall semester and to see what a new class of incoming freshmen brings us in terms of library users, as well as returning students, many of whom haven't had a chance to experience Hale. So we look forward to that. The next set of questions relate to services to alumni. Can K-State alumni use the library? Yes, we are open to, oh, I missed a question. I'll go back, but let me answer this one first. Yes, we're open to the public. It's part of our land grant mission and also part of our obligation as part of the Federal Depository Library Program, a program that provides government documents for access to create an informed citizenry. So we are open to the public. The next question after that was, are we open to the public electronically? Can alumni access us electronically? We do have limitations on our electronic databases based on the licensing agreements, which routinely limit use to faculty, staff, and students of K-State. So those resources are not available to alumni off campus. If you come into the library, you can use those materials on site, but you could not access them in your in your home, for example. There are some electronic resources that we do make available. We have a web page for community users, and I can shout out the web address here, and maybe someone can type it into the chat for us. But it's www.lib.ksu.edu/information-community-users. and that'll tell you what you can have access to in the library. The question I skipped over by accident is the entire library Wi-Fi enabled, including the stacks? I can say close to 100% yes, except the stacks proved to be a mighty challenge for us because of the metal shelving and because of all the books. It's very dense space. So we've been testing out our Wi-Fi in the stacks just recently, and we've got some spots to improve on. But one of the things that we did with the renovation was to improve our wireless capability in the building. Someone asked, how does the great room look today compared to the 1970s when I enjoyed studying there? And my answer to that would be pretty similar. It has the wonderful murals in it. One of the things that has changed is that several years ago, we put new windows in the great room. They were showing wear and tear. They had broken panes. They weren't made out of a material that we could go in and do repairs. Instead, we had to replace. And I thought that was going to be beyond our capacity financially. It was beyond our capacity financially, but thanks to generous Chapman, we had all of those windows replaced and a nice little edging of purple glass framing the windows as well. So that's a change in the great room. The gigantic tables that were in there were destroyed by the water that ran into that room. So we had to dispose of those. So there's new furniture in there, but it is in the style of the room, and I think looks really good. Here's somebody who worked at the library more than 60 years ago. In fact, more than 60 years ago, the stacks were closed, and I was one of many who retrieved books for lending. So I'm interested in the 2021 version of Hale Library stacks. Well, the 2021 version is help yourself. The stacks are open to the public and open to students and faculty for their own retrieval. If they have difficulty finding something, if they're not familiar with the cataloging and classification system that we use, staff are available to go to the stacks with you and help you find the items that you need. But otherwise, it's an open stack library with the exception of special collections and university archives. We've got some miscellaneous questions. A couple I can answer, and a couple are just great commentary, I think. When was the history of K-State Libraries last updated? That's a good question, and something that hasn't been done for a while. We do have a history of our Friends organization that was last done in 2005 by Richard Coleman, who some of you may remember. But we don't have a recent history of the library. This might be a good time to do one post-renovation. So if somebody out there is looking for a great project, let us know and maybe we can work together. Speaking of the Friends group, I just want to mention that they have been immensely helpful in the renovation project and in supporting library collections as well. They have raised tens of thousands of dollars for us. And one of the things that we have been able to do as a result of their fundraising is to, excuse me, build a large instruction room in Hale on the 4th floor, which encompasses about a space for about 60 or so people. We've never had the capacity to routinely bring large classes in here for instruction, and now we do, thanks to the Friends of the Libraries. If that's something that you're interested in, becoming a member, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. Are women still required to wear skirts in the library? Well, I have on pants today, and there are students downstairs in shorts and flip-flops. So our dress code has changed quite a bit since the days of skirt wearing. One of the new areas of the library that I mentioned is the Carlson Family Reading Room, which is our children's literature and curriculum materials collection. Someone asked, does the Carlson Reading Room have plenty of room to expand for adding new juvenile books? Yes, it does. There's considerable additional shelving space in that area so that we can grow that collection. We have a wonderful donor, Donna Knoll in Kansas City, who has given us hundreds of thousands of volumes of children's literature and has many more to donate to us. So maybe not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, but quite an enormous collection that we're really grateful to have. So we've got plenty of room for it. Do we still have a collection of historic cookbooks? Yes, yes, very much so. We believe we have one of the largest collections in the country. It ranges from materials, early publication date is 1487. That's the first printed cookbook that we have in the library. Oh, I apologize for my phone. And the cookery collection also includes manuscript cookbooks. We have a manuscript cookbook from India. Let me tell you a little bit about that. It's from 17th century Northern India, and it's written in Hindi. It lists ingredients of different dishes served at Hindu festivals. The oldest item in our collection is an Italian cookbook that's actually printed. There are two other printings of this cookbook that preceded it, both that were in Latin. This is the first cookbook in the vernacular language in Europe. The only other copy in the United States is in the National Library of Medicine in Bethesda, Maryland. So I thank Roger Adams for that information, our cookery collection expert, for providing that for us. One of the things that we're doing with the cookery collection right now is what's called crowdsourcing, which is a web-based project to invite people to come and transcribe, or in some cases translate, cookbooks and cookbook recipes so that we can make them available on the internet. If you're interested in that project, the website for that is called fromthepage.com. The last set of questions I have are about my retirement. First one is starting at the front end of my career. How did I decide I wanted to become a librarian? You know, the automatic thing to say is that I was an avid reader, but it's true. I was, and I still am, an avid reader. I had a wonderful children's librarian at my school when I was growing up that really got me into reading. But I got into libraries and thinking about working at libraries when I was living in Chicago and working at an organization called Midwest Women's Center. And there I was put in charge of a resource reading room that was totally unorganized. We couldn't find anything. The books and other resources that we had weren't in any kind of particular order. And I thought, well, I really got a project ahead of me. Maybe I should check in and take a class at a local library school that would help me organize these materials. Well, I got into library school and I never looked back. It was really ended up being the perfect career for me. So I'm thrilled that I've had 40 years practicing librarianship, and I'm particularly happy that I've spent the last 17 at K-State. Why are you retiring? Well, I think it's time. My husband retired about 5 years ago, and so he's anxious for me to join him. He's looking for someone to share household duties with, and for us to recreate and travel together. So that's really the motivation for my retirement, is to spend more time with him and our lovely dog. What are you going to do in retirement? This is, I don't know if he's online or not, from Ralph Richardson. And if he is, thanks, Ralph, for your comment and your nice note. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to travel and volunteer. I look forward to doing some volunteer work at the Humane Society. That's a cause near and dear to my heart. I was at a yoga class a couple weeks ago, and the yoga instructor always has a quote at the end, and it was about not always planning. Sometimes you just need to breathe. And so right now, one of the things I'm going to do when I retire is just breathe. Take some time to gather myself and figure out what I want to accomplish with my retirement, but definitely volunteer work and singing, golfing, and spending time with my husband and dog, probably in that order. We've got a question in the chat, it looks like. Is this my last speaking event before retirement? I think it is. I actually have one after retirement for the Ladies Literary Society in Abilene. That'll be in August. But this is my last hurrah as a member of the K-State community. My husband and I are staying in town. We'll continue to live in Manhattan, so I'm looking forward to that and seeing all my campus friends and K-State family as I go to events at McCain and football games and other activities around the community. So I'm not going far. I'm happy to answer any other questions you all might have. You can put them in the chat and we'll make sure they get answered. From Debbie Rogers, how can people join the Friends of the K-State Libraries? Good question, Debbie, a previous president of our Friends group. There is a Friends of the Libraries webpage that you can go to if you just Google K-State. And Selena's putting the link in the chat. Awesome. You'll get information on how to join. We are run by a board of directors. They are an awesome group of people who always have the library's best interests in mind. They are the primary fundraisers for the Friends group. They do our annual gala, which we haven't been able to do for the past couple of years. We're excited about getting that started again. There will be a gala in the fall. And other ways that we raise money are through our memberships. So please consider joining. Oh, David Ollinger, what my highlight? Yeah, I'd have to do at least a top 3 highlights of my time here at K-State. I think one of them was meeting Marlon Fitzwater. Marlon Fitzwater was the press secretary for Presidents Reagan and Bush 1, and he is a K-State grad and opened up a dialogue with us about accepting his papers and memorabilia from his days at the White House. And we worked with him on that, and that collection came to us. And he has been just a wonderful, wonderful gentleman to get to know. He's been honored by the Alumni Association. He received an honorary doctorate thanks to his contributions to the library and the university. And getting to know him has been wonderful. I got the most wonderful email from him a couple weeks ago acknowledging my retirement, and it really brought a tear to my eye. He's somebody I've grown very fond of. I think obviously the renovation of Hale is another big thing, not something I was looking to do, but something that landed in my lap. but I'm very proud of what we've done and how the facility has turned out. And it was a big learning experience. I felt like I needed to learn how to be an architect and a general contractor and an interior designer and kind of all those little bits and pieces of all those things at once. So it was a great learning experience, even though it came out of a tragedy. And I think it gave us a great opportunity to create what we like to think of as a 21st century library today. Mark, we don't have a save the date for the gala yet. It will be sometime in fall, but the date hasn't been set. Probably late October-ish. We have to keep other events in mind on campus and football schedule and that sort of thing. So we'll be getting a save the date out probably later in the summer, late summer, early fall. Other questions, comments? If not, I will turn it back to Amy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dean Goetsch, and I'm so pleased that you were willing to do this for us. It won't be your last hurrah. We still want to keep you involved at K-State, but I want to thank you for your leadership and your service to Kansas State University. You've been a valued colleague, and I still remember meeting you 17 years ago when you interviewed for the position. And I was so thrilled that you accepted. We could have not found anyone better to serve as our Dean of Libraries. I've always admired your insight, and whether it's a Dean's retreat or whatever it is, people listen to you. When you speak, people listen. And you have such a thoughtful way of going about sharing your ideas. And I really appreciate learning more about what the students wanted in Hale and that you were able to accomplish that. I mean, that is a true sign of a leader, and that listening skill is something that I've always admired in you. Your reimagined library was brought to light through your vision. And I know you never wanted a fire to happen, but look what happened because of that. And I know you will soon be entering retirement. And we hope you know that the K-State family appreciates everything you have done, not only for the library system, but for all of Kansas State University. You've been a valued colleague to so many people, but Hale Library will be a lasting reminder of your time at Kansas State University. So thank you so much, and we wish you the very, very best. And you're always welcome at the Alumni Center. So thank you, Dean Goetsch.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate those comments very much.
And with that, I want to remind everybody that we will have our next Wildcat Chat on June 16th at 4 p.m. It will feature an inside look at the K-State Marching Band with Dr. Frank Trace. And I know it will be an exciting and lively Wildcat Chat. But once again, a special thank you to Dean Goetsch. She definitely has a lasting legacy when you look at the reimagined Hale Library. Take care and go Cats.